will be crowded
So,
all week.
herzlich willkommen
Nice.
zu unserem nächsten Panel hier im Rahmen von 40 Jahre Spiel. Herzlich willkommen zu unserem nächsten Panel. Quo VADIS, Spielewelt bzw. Spieleindustrie. Und ich werde jetzt auf Englisch switchen, weil unser Panel eben auch englischsprachige Gäste beinhaltet. Welcome to our next panel, 40 years of Spiel. We're going to talk about Quo VADIS, so where's the Spiel industry, the games industry, gonna develop into. So I have wonderful guests to talk about this topic. Let me introduce them. Jean-Christophe Giraud, you're CEO from Asmodee. Welcome. Or what's the correct?
No, I'm the deputy of the CEO.
Deputy
I'm not
of the CEO. Okay, sorry about that. From Asmodee. We have Philipp Menge from Panda Game Manufacturing, another COO. We have a lot of C's on the panel today. Then Carol Rapp, you know her, of course, the managing director of the Spiel since this year. Welcome. We have Matthias Nach from Deep Print Games, another CEO. And founder.
That's not a level.
And
another C.
Let's say president, for example.
Okay. Let's say president. Welcome, Martin Swertkott from GameFound.
And Awaken Realms.
Awaken Realms.
Yes.
Thank you. So as you can see, we have a lot of experience here on this panel. I'm very happy to talk with you guys about the game industry. And because it's 40 years of Spiel, I want to talk about how much the game industry developed during the last 40 years, where we are now, what's the current topic, and of course, at the end, we're going to take a look into the future, what you guys think where the games industry is heading forward to. So let's talk about, maybe let's start with how you managed during the pandemic. Like, let's start with that situation, because how's business at the moment for you guys? Maybe you can take us with you. How did you come back from that? Is it still going on? Is it still a push, like from the pandemic, from the COVID years, or was it tough? Who wants to start? Maybe you.
I can, if you want, yes.
Yes.
So the COVID time has been very strange for, I think, for the game business. Mm-hmm. The situation was tough for everybody in the world, but after a couple of months, actually, there was a lot of demand for board game. People were stuck at home looking for something to do, and board game was a good solution. So actually, we have been really afraid at the beginning. Then after, we have been really afraid not to be able to supply. We had a lot of challenge regarding shipping, regarding manufacturing, and so we produced as many games as we could, which means that at the end of the pandemic, there was more stock discussion because there was a lot of product on the market, a lot of product in our warehouses, and the sales trend has been not as positive as it was during the COVID, and so 22 and now 23 is more, let's say, back to a more normal situation where we normalize the level of sales, we normalize our stock level. And to answer to your question, if you look at the end, the global average growth between 19 and 23, we are way, way above where we were in 19, meaning that it's like this, but at the end, the final point is the market is still growing. Mm.
You mentioned it at the opening of the Spiel that the growth of the industry is almost 10%. Even if you exclude like trading card games, it's still a one-digit number. So how do you see that? Is it still a growing business? And is it?
I think the market is still growing, and we see that also here at the show. So there are so many exhibitors as we have never seen before, and so much floor space and games and tables to play test. So yes, our industry is in a very good shape right now. Mm.
I think that from the crowdfunding, I can speak from the crowdfunding perspective because we do a lot of work. So one thing that, I'm economic major, so I have economic background, and the world doesn't really make a lot of sense for me. For example, when I try to predict what will happen, because, I'm from Poland, we have a war next border, there is, the pandemic is just like, when I remember when I was starting the business 10 years ago, the biggest news was that, Queen Elizabeth snort or something like that. There's like nothing happening in the world huge. Today is like, I don't want to see what's the 2024 in store. So I think that in general, and for me, there was like, as John mentioned, like a lot of fear, a lot of kind of like, oh, what's going to happen, especially, like Russians started invasion to Ukraine, being next, it was like panicking. But then, like I always go to the core of things and thinking like, like what is the value that we provide as board game creators? And this is getting people together, creating an awesome experience. And as long as we do that, we'll be successful. And I think that this is kind of the most important thing is like, there is a business, numbers and so forth, but when you go to the basic principle, it's like people need fun in their lives, especially in the hard times. People need connection with other humans. And as long as we, keep that and keep making that and delivering that, then we will have a great business because people always need that, will always need that no matter the circumstances. So.
Are we at the peak, Matthias, or is it, how do you see it?
I don't know how often I've heard, yes, we have a peak and there's a bubble, etc.
Yes.
No, we are far away from that. We are still too small to even have a bubble. Mm-hmm. I guess the board game business will continue to grow. 10 years ago, we were still that small that people said, yeah, I can play all the games that come to the market in a year. Yeah. I try to remember when was the last time somebody said, yeah, I read all the books that came out in a year. And we are talking about 90,000 books in Germany in 2015 or so. I Googled that once. And as long as we don't reach that level, I think we are far away from a peak.
In your experience, did the people that started experience board games for the first time during the pandemic? Because there was a huge amount of like, what can I do at home? Are they still playing games? So was it like a healthy development that we have a lot of new people in the business, in the hobby now?
I think yes. So we brought many new people into our hobby. Yeah, that's totally true. We also lost some on the way. That's also true. But from my perspective, I see people buying games right now with all the difficulties we have in the world, and also because of the inflation we see in the last year, that board games is a very cheap entertainment for the family and for friends, and you buy it once, you can have fun many hours, hundreds of hours with it, and people see emotions, interact with each other. So yes, I think we still bring new people into our hobby because of the, let's say, more or less bad situation in the world right now. And we bring them joy, we bring them fun, we bring them entertainment and good spirit.
Yeah. Can you add something from the manufacturing side?
Oh, absolutely.
Was the last years?
Yes, absolutely. Ask the manufacturer and you will know the truth, because this is the source where the games actually are made. I can echo what GC said. We have seen a very strong peak in demand during the pandemic. To be honest, as a manufacturer, it was crazy. We couldn't keep up with the demand we had. We had long lead times, which led to overstocking. We still see some inventory keeping in the market. So we have a post-pandemic, not trauma, but we do see that there was a sudden decrease in demand when people realized that the sales through is getting more difficult and that the inventory is still too high. But we also do see that it is picking up again. New games are coming out. The stocks are slowly being dissolved. So we do see that the positive trend, which we had prior to the pandemic, continues. So we are pretty confident that we do see the sales picking up. And I agree with what Carol said. It is a positive trend and will continue.
You read a lot about that the board game industry is growing and there's a lot of more players. Demand is high. But there's also a truth, I guess, behind like 10% or 6% growth, that the costs are getting higher and higher, right? So what I don't see at the moment is, or what I see is a little bit of fear from the publishers and the studios to increase the prices of what board games should actually cost. Can you add something to that? Is that the truth? Is there still like a fear about that?
We have like $150 core boxes usually. So I don't know. I think there are like two types of customers, and like obviously there's like different customers, right? Like I think primarily for Awaken Realms, we often have people who like the grandiose, deluxified miniatures, and they just like are as much players as collectors, and they enjoy having, you know, the top version. And then you have like an average retail customer that, you know, looks for a present for a kid, or just, you know, the most price efficient way of doing things. And I think that, you know, we usually look at board game customers as it would be like singular person, but actually there are a lot of different, you know, layers in the hobby. There are collectors, there are people who just play, there are people who find something buy as a present, and there are different layers on it. And on our end, we have a situation where, for us, the way we try to do is like to offer as many viable options as possible. And for example, for Dragon Eclipse campaign right now, we did a, you know, like a pledge without miniatures, with standees, simple option to do. And actually that would be like 50% of people who would never be able to get this way. So making it more available is always a good thing to, you know, show the games up. But for the most expensive pledge from the crowdfunding, still there are a lot of people that enjoy that and just, you know, buy it.
Yeah, but that's an extreme, right? I mean, people are buying games for 200 euros and stuff. So there's on the other spectrum, do you see a problem with the increased prices in production?
Since the inflation, so like 1 year and a half, 2 years ago, yes, we see that in family, mass market audience, people are looking now for a cheaper game, or they are not spending, maybe if they have a budget, they will buy a lower budget, or they will buy less games for the same budget. It depends, but yes, it has an impact today. If we see, even when we want to get listed in some mass market chain, they are asking, I don't know, maybe they were asking for 25 maximum 2 years ago. Now they will ask for 20 maximum. It could be euro or dollar or whatever. So yes, there's an impact today, but I don't know if it's related to the COVID or to the situation, but maybe more on the economic situation, the war, the crisis, and the inflation.
Yes, we do see, as a manufacturer, we do see a lot of price pressure coming. It's not just because there is a decrease in demand overall, so that there's more global capacity in manufacturing, but it's also because our clients do feel the price pressure coming from their markets. Panda is a premium manufacturer, so we were always focusing purely on quality and not so much on pricing. And we do see that clients are giving up the focus on quality and rather focus right now on pricing, because that's where they're losing market share. So there's definitely a shift towards more pricing or cost awareness than before.
I see, just giving from the manufacturing side, I see that during the pandemic, when there was a shortage of getting a print slot, that a lot of these printers expanded, and now they have not enough orders. So I see a little kind of a price war on that side, which makes it again a little bit cheaper for the publishers. And we see that if we try to stay on that price level and say, okay, let's not increase the prices from 10 to 15 euros, but stay at 10, that the people are really happy about it and recognize these elements and say, yeah, okay, let's buy that one in that case.
We were talking about the number of releases each year already. Like, it is a huge number, like 1,700. Even if you just count the German releases, it's still a 3-digit number, right, for that market here. So is that a problem for studios like you? I mean, you founded Deep Games a couple of years ago. How different is it, like, compared? You've been in the industry for centuries now, I think.
Yeah, close to 20 years, yeah.
So how much did that change, like the environment from, like, I don't know how many games were released on your first Spiel?
On my first Spiel?
Yeah.
That was 1989. Ooh. Oh, damn. I think that was born. A 2-digit number. No, I mean, what we realize is, I mean, if you open up a new publishing house, that even if everybody knows you, you have all the contacts, you can talk to all the partners, you can find them everywhere. Everybody is saying, yeah, but you still need to prove that you as a new publishing house can do it. And we have all the contacts, we talk with a lot of partners. I have 56 meetings this week. And we show them the games, they're really interested, but in the end, they have to look what works in my area. And we have the situation, they don't just talk to me, they talk to 100 other partners, and we need to make sure that we say, yeah, but our games are that tiny bit better. At least we think about that in this way. I mean, in the end, it's looking at having the right game for the right target group. As you said, we can do a €150 box, and we are getting the niche player, and we know we can sell 4,000 of them easily. Or we can make a small card game and sell 50,000 games worldwide, and it's still just a small drip. And it's getting harder, but at the end, the experience helps.
But as long as the audience grows, it doesn't matter if like the exhibitors grow as well, right? I mean, there's a new audience coming each year.
I like what Matthias was saying, comparing our business to the book business, because I think it's very close, really closer to the toy business, where we used to be sorted in the past. So I think that on our side, we tried some years ago to take the decision to follow the strategy of less but better. Because there's so many games on the market today, as you said, if you want to exist, if you want to be visible with your new games, you have not to make a good game, you have to make an exceptional game. You have to make something that will make a difference. Because there's so many novelty, because actually making a game is not, making a very good game is very difficult. But producing a game, it's not that complex, it's not that expensive. So that's why there's so many publishers today on the market, and as the market is growing, everybody thinks that, oh, it's a good market to enter, and so this is like growing like this. That said, at the end, if you look, if you look at the 1,500 games of last Spiel, how many are still on the market today selling? I'm afraid there's not a lot. I think that on our side, as let's say one of the big publishers, we really try to stop this inflation in the number of games we are putting on the market, even if people can think this is still too much. Maybe to spend more time on the game themselves and to produce something better or as good as we think we can to make new long seller, but and not another game. And it's difficult.
Yeah. But the people really like seeing a new game, right? I mean, there's also like from the audience perspective, it makes something with you if you see like there's 1,000 news on the Neuheiten show down in the hall. People really like to buy new games. How long is this gonna happen? I mean, the numbers are growing and growing since years.
Yeah,
but where's it
growing and growing since years, and that's all true. But who's enjoying the new releases every year? It's more or less the bubble that is playing for years. That is the community. That is the people we see here right now, right? So the people out there. So, for example, our star guest yesterday, he calls himself a player, but he said, "Okay, my favorite game is Catan." Or I even play Monopoly at home or Scrabble. And we really enjoy that because we do not have so much time to play together. So we focus on the classics that we learned early on. So for family like his, it's totally usual to play and buy one game a year. So the new releases we see here is for the community that buy as many games as they can from their focus area, right? And they enjoy it. And I love to see the amazement they have when they run into the hall and run to the exhibitor, to the publisher. They want to buy the game or play test the game. But they are, even if they are many here, just a few, because the market is so much bigger.
Yeah. And I still see people running out of the Spiel with bags with classics like Carcassonne or Seven Wonder and stuff like that. And it's a new game for them as well, so they experience it here for the first time. So I see, especially at Asmodee, I see a focus on returning to the long long tail sale. Is that right?
The long seller, you mean?
Yeah, like focusing on like classics and evergreens and stuff
No,
like that.
it's not focusing. Actually, the market is, let's say, divided in two. You have the long seller and you have the novelty. And the idea is to launch novelty that can become long seller, of course.
That's a secret, Matthias.
Yes, a secret. I mean, everybody tries this spaghetti method. We just throw them out of the market and hopes they are the long sellers.
Yeah.
And the more you throw out, the higher the chances is. And that contradicts to what we want. We want to just focus on less games. And
So I agree with you, but I think that that's a wrong strategy to throw as many games and to hope that one or two will stay. I think, again, this is what we try to do, is that we reduce the number of products we put on the market, the game we put on the market, and we market them, we promote them, and we give them the chance to become one of the next long seller. So instead of throwing 100 expecting that one will stay, we promote and we push 10 expecting that maybe 2 will stay. So that's a different strategy and a different approach. Obviously, when you're a small publisher, it's more difficult because you have only 1 or 2 games to promote. So you have one focus, one priority. But on our side, this is what we try to do.
I think in our industry, one of the things that is really awesome is that it is a meritocracy to some extent, meaning that you can have, and there's like very few industries that can have, you can have a Gloomhaven that is coming out of nowhere and suddenly becomes #1 game ever. There's like very little industries where, 2 guys in their garage can create a game and it can be, top game or whatever, wherever they would go to. And there's a place for crowdfunding in that, right? Where they would go to, like let's say Asmodee with an idea, let's make Kingdom Death Monster. It will be a great game. That probably not agree to make that game. But I think that to Maria's point is like, yeah, I mean there should be that many premieres because you never know what will be the next hit. You never know. You can when the game is fun. When it is fun, you cannot engineer it. There is a game theory design, but at the end of the game, Monopoly, which is, objectively a terrible game, is one of the most popular board games out there, right? And the history of this board game is crazy because this board game was designed to show people how capitalism doesn't work in the property market, right? This was the thesis of like and what people said like best game ever, right? So it's like you cannot plan for like obviously I understand that I think that limiting the amount and focus of the organization on trying to make, I think that this is a good approach, but having a lot of people, especially not like big studios, but like a guy that is his hobby, his whole life, and he can suddenly have the tools to create the board game and introduce his life dream, something that he's been dreaming in terms of team, mechanics, and just go crazy. And the level of crazy things, designs that people think of is just amazing. Like I'm always come around and I'm just blown away of how awesome ideas people have. And I think it's good because it's like, it is good to have a lot of options and there will be some really non-obvious winners that no one, from the industry leaders would thought of. So I think that's...
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about crowdfunding. I think if you look back and at the current situation, crowdfunding is one of the biggest changes the industry experienced in the last 40 years, right? I mean, as you mentioned, everybody can have an idea for a board game. 10, 30 years ago, you had to go to the Spiel, you had to pitch your idea to CEOs, to marketing people, and find someone who finances your game. And now, after Kickstarter and GameFound, of course, now everybody can have the stream of releasing a board game, and you just have to find enough people who finance you. I think from the core idea, this was a beautiful thing for the games industry. But how did you experience it from the industry part? Is it a good thing? Was it something that shook you up totally?
This is fine.
Yeah. I mean, like, obviously, for us, crowdfunding was awesome because if not, we never ever had company and, Awaken Realms, and it was a mad journey. I think that, okay, so the question is like, I really don't think that it has any impact on retail, to be honest. I have seen it, like, for example, we did Castle of Burgundy special edition, which was like the Luxified Castle of Burgundy, really, really nice. And, it did some marketing, but like the normal line was absolutely fine. Nothing changed, I think. Like I think that those are really kind of different groups of people than the normal customer. And I think the crowdfunding customer is much more person deep in the hobby, looking for, deluxeified components, looking for this new, campaign game. So some of the most popular games on the crowdfunding are definitely not the same one in retail, because the most popular crowdfunding campaign is cooperative campaign, 100 hours long type of game with miniatures. That is the,
but then there's something like Atomic Kitten, which was like...
that's true. I mean, you can do different things, obviously. I think that
Explosion.
Yes, explosion. I think that it is for sure disruptive to some extent, and there are also I think in general it is growing the hobby a little bit, because it is reaching for people who would not be interested in board games normally because of it. But there are also like bad things connected to it, right? With you have publishers who would take money, then not deliver the product, which is always bad, right? For this. But I think like if you sum it up and just see at the net results, I think it is positive. We have some amazing games that would never existed, like Gloomhaven, Kingdom of the Smoke, Tainted Grail, Nemesis.
But it was never a big threat like for the classic industry, because there's like so focused on a special a niche people.
It's really, it's exactly what you said. If you look at the success on Kickstarter, on GameFound, and all this kind of game, this is a specific type of game. Exploding Kittens is an exception, because actually we are talking about this as a game, but it was not only a game. It was the connection between a game and the community of Matt, which was the illustrator.
Like one of the biggest webcomics.
Exactly. So that was the connection that made this game a huge success. But there's no other example of a party game, family game, or classic board game that can reach the millions that the minis or the special edition or etc. are reaching. So we are talking here with the special community, which is good. Actually, it's good because this is a community that was not having what they were expected, and thanks to the crowdfunding, they can. But on the impact on the normal or classic retail market, it has no real impact. Just that when there's a huge success on crowdfunding, some of them, they can go to retail and can be also successful in the retail.
I mean, you have the best position, right? You don't care if there's a studio producing a game or a Kickstarter. You produce them for that.
Exactly. No, we don't care. We see it as an add-on. And actually, crowdfunded games usually push our boundaries, because, as you're saying, the components need to be extraordinary. They have to have a new function, a new material. So they push our boundaries to become better. Panda produces the most beautiful components because of Kickstarter games, to be honest. I think traditional publishing has also developed heavily, but they need to keep up with the new standards which Kickstarter games can provide and will continue to provide. So yes, as a manufacturer, we actually don't care, but we love to see great games coming out, and that is definitely something that has been set by crowdfunded games.
That is actually a super cool point, because when we were working with Castles of Burgundy, I saw, working with Ravensburger, I saw the two different mindset, because the way we work on our games is like, we just make a game and then calculate the price after we develop the game. And the way they think is like, okay, we have $30. Like, what can we do in $30, right? So this is like very different mindset, and it allows for some crazy things to happen.
What I find interesting, Matthias, is, just you, maybe first.
I just want to say that what crowdfunding did is it increased the market, because it, as he says, it didn't cannibalize any other part, it added a complete part. We still have the people who just go to their Walmart or whatever, some big retail chains, and buy their games there. And you have all the hobby gamers, and now you also have these niche gamers that want their big 100-hour campaign, big boxes, and collect them, paint them, whatever. So these are added to the whole and increase the market for everybody.
We don't have anybody from retail here, but is Kickstarter GameFound crowdfunding as a thing, or also becoming more and more a tool for the publishers and the developers to, like go directly to the customer and sell directly to customers? We see a lot more big publishers like Ravensburger, Queen Games doing special editions and stuff. And sometimes you don't even find their games anymore in the stores because of that. So they go directly to the customers. I think the whole beautiful crowdfunding idea has some sort of become more like a shopping experience, right?
I think that is an event experience, which is why a lot of publishers, I'm talking with a lot of publishers from the GameFound side, and one thing that I really appreciate is what they are telling to me is like, it's really hard to make a hype anymore on a game, because it used to be like you would premiere a game at Essen and people were excited about it because there were 5 premieres, but now you come to Essen, there are a lot of games, right? So it is hard. So when you think about crowdfunding, it's not a typical sale. It is an event. You're doing something, you're changing with community. Then you can have some drama in the middle of the campaign because you added some stretch goal that people didn't like. So there's some emotions. And what is awesome, people can also influence the final product. So I think that a lot of publishers are actually using it because it is a thing to make it like point it on the map and to kind of like get people familiar with the title, and it also get people more engaged. And engagement is also a cool thing. When you look at BGG, the hotness list, usually that's crowdfunding campaigns. And the reason for that is first, you do a lot of marketing and you can actually see the marketing. But the other thing is like people feel engaged because they can influence the product. So they will be, talking about it. And I think that this is something that publishers enjoy.
Let's talk a little bit about what the trends are. If you take a look at the Spiel this year, and Matthias, you have this topic for a couple of years now, like eco-friendly production, more eco-environment topics in the game. How do you see that? Is that just currently a hot topic, or is that something that will change the industry in the next couple of years?
I think it's a long-term trend. This is something that is more and more important for the customer and that the publisher needs to take into consideration. That said, and sometimes it could be contradictory with the point I was mentioning regarding the price, because obviously it's more expensive to make eco-friendly games. So this is always a balance to find between this, which is again, and I think that it will be mandatory in the coming years. That will be no discussion. The price that people are ready to put on the table to buy games, and the publisher needs to develop the game. So we will find the balance because we have no choice. And this is not a hot topic. This is a long-term thing.
Yeah. How much will it change? Especially from the production side?
I think it will change. I agree. It's a long-term thing. We had seen it starting seriously before the pandemic. To be honest, during the pandemic, nobody cared about eco-friendly stuff. They just wanted their games. They wanted supply. They wanted fast supply. But it's coming back, and that's good. It's a good thing. We do see a lot of requests coming in terms of substituting plastic to board or paper. It starts with the trays. It even goes to plastic components. There's a new thing called rewood. So you use recycled plastic plus recycled wood. You can use pulp trays. You can get rid of the cello wrap around playing cards and wrap them in paper. You can even wrap a full game, not in cello anymore, but you could wrap them in paper and print on it. You could use labels instead. So there's a lot of things going on. We do see the request, and yes, it's right. You need to find the right balance between pricing or the price point, which the end consumer is willing to pay, and to have a substantial share of eco-friendly components in the game.
You mentioned it as well at the opening, right? You've seen a lot of exhibitors getting on to the topic.
Yeah, I mean, you have one of the games with Earthborn Rangers, the German edition. So it's produced eco-friendly. I think Andrew also has the certificates for where the paper is coming from, so where it was grown and all that. So yes, we see that. So it's either in production like Earthborn Rangers, or a Snake, which is the first game ever which has the label net positive, meaning that the climatic footprint is positive instead of it's producing CO2. And then we have a lot of games that have sustainability, energy change as a topic. So they are influenced by the culture, by the people, by the needs, by what the politics is doing. So seeing sustainability and climate as a theme, as a focus topic here doesn't surprise me, because that is exactly what is happening all around us.
Can you talk a little bit about the Earthbound Rangers? How difficult was it to make a game like this? I know it's like your other company. But
yeah, it's the other company, and I wasn't even involved because all my colleagues did it. But I mean, I have some experience in that case, that I know that using the right paper is one thing. Using the right glue in the paper is the other thing. Using the right colors on it, how much oil this is needed, and the varnish, what kind we can use. I learned a lot in the last 3 years making games more eco-friendly. And the shipping from China to the US is the smallest part. I always see them, they say, yeah, but it's made in China. Yeah, but if they can make it eco-friendly, then the shipping is really the smallest issue. And one of the things I started at the beginning of the year when I was in Nuremberg and I was talking to 20 different printers, I said, whenever I ask you for a quote, I want to know how much CO2 does it cost us. And that's something if I ask for a quote and the printer needs to provide that now, and I realize that more and more printers okay, how can we calculate that? How can we get it out of there? Otherwise, a game that says, okay, we are net zero wouldn't be possible. And that's still something, not everybody can do it now. It's something that goes slowly, but everybody is going into that direction. And the printers are realizing that, because I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one asking for it.
No, actually, we provide that to Asmodee already, yes.
Yes, so, and Asmodee has another nice thing, because Asmodee is producing these big numbers of games they can produce locally. They can produce in Germany for German markets. They can produce in the US for the US market. I even got from a printer Asmodee games as a copy from Romania, because they also produce in Romania for the East.
Really?
I didn't know. Yes, so that's something that we want to reach, but that's with retail games much easier if we are selling 1 million copies and we can do that locally. For a big campaign, 100-hour, where you only produce 5,000 to 8,000 games totally for the world, that's not an option. But you still want to be eco-friendly, and we do our part to say, yes, we want this information from you, and I talk with them even, what kind of varnish do you have, what kind of paper you have, what kind of wood even do you use, where does it come from? We try to find all this information. Feels like my job is more having to do with climate than with doing the games, but everybody is pulling on the same side, and in this case, we are again the big board game publishing family.
But is this a global trend, or is this some European thing that we started here?
Oh, is it a global trend? That's a tough question. But when I heard you talking, it reminded me of my discussion with Andrew Navarro, so the man behind Earthbound Rangers, and he had the vision of producing every game in the area where it will be sold. And that was where he started when he started the Kickstarter campaign. And at UK Game Expo, he told me it was impossible. He sourced in America, and the American factories, they were able to deliver what he needed, but they were not able to show him the certificate, because the woods they take the trees from for the paper, they grow in that environment. But because it's so expensive to get that certificate, they don't have it. So it's not eco-friendly on paper, so he cannot tell the people, hey, it's eco-friendly. So in the end, what happened, he produced every single game for the whole wide world here in Europe, and his footprint, his CO2 footprint is so large, so very small, tiny, even when he's shipping it into the US. So it shows that people also in America are thinking about it. I mean, we see a different kind of politic there. Some are even refusing to talk about climate change, but the people over there in production, in game manufacturing, in publishing, they are also thinking about it, because we all have an impact on our world, and we want to live here in the future. So maybe we should think about sustainable ways of bringing games to the people.
On the other side of the spectrum, I think crowdfunding loves plastic, right? This is still a big thing, like a lot of mini games, a lot of collection editions. And
I think that I have a bit contrary opinion here, where I feel like, to some extent, we can do as a board game industry. Obviously, I agree that this is an issue, we should do it. But I think that we can have much larger impact with the team of the games and the actual, educational kind of layers. And as an entertainers, entertaining sector, we can have an impact on the culture. And I think that this is actually much stronger impact that we can have than, varnish level and so forth. Why? Because I would guess that, Coca-Cola in one day does 10 times more plastic than the whole board game industry in a year, right? So I feel like, it is awesome to see, board game creators to try to go for it, but I think like we're such a small, part of the problem that, I think that we can do much better job for the world if we will actually, show the problem and to kind of educational purpose of it, than to focus on the components, especially that, our product is not, people are not opening the box, playing it once and throwing it away. Our games, there are people who still play Nemesis that they purchased 7 years ago. I really don't think that if I will get like top 10 industries that is destroying the world, I don't think that I will see board games there. So I think we're still good because we're not producing.
I mean, obviously, it's not important. I think it is important to change the
whenever we can do an impact.
One-time product.
Obviously, whenever we can do better, we should do better. That's obvious. But again, I think that if I would, in my mind, the focus point for me is like, let's use the team to spread the word as much as possible. Let's show as an example. That's always good to show that off. But I don't think that this is, I don't feel bad for making a board game with plastic miniatures because, people enjoy them and it is a long-term thing. It's not like they buy it and they throw it away. So that's.
I can echo that. I think as long as we focus on disposable components in the game and make them eco-friendly as a first step, it's much more important than focusing right now on miniatures, which hopefully will stay on the shelf for decades. To be honest, most of them are the collectors, so they don't throw them away unless the game is really bad. It's not. That said, I don't see that we should focus right now on miniatures. Although I do hope that we will find alternative materials for making miniatures more eco-friendly.
Yeah. You mentioned the topics, like let's change the mind of the gamers and the people that play games. Is that something that is? It's not easy. You're not authors, but of course you work a lot with authors and designers.
I am.
And of course, yeah, sorry, you are. But Carol, you mentioned, or I think Philippe said it, people play games to escape problems. People play games to forget about the problems of the world sometimes. I've seen a game here at the Spiel which was like so brutal honest with our climate situation. Like you had to fight cooperative against the climate change. And I was like frustrated after the game because we lost and it felt so real, and after that I was like, let's play something fun and stupid because it's not gonna happen that every game has like some eco topic or themes. Do you think we will see more of that games will take serious topics into the gameplay?
Yes, I think we already saw that in the past, and we see that every year that we have specific topics coming up and are very serious in games. I even remember one year when Robin, my communications director, did a campaign about serious games to promote that idea to the press, to the people, and tell them, hey, yes, games could be fun, and it's even entertaining to learn something, but here it's really a serious topic and you can have a deep dive into something that you probably would never touch into. So yeah, games have that potential to okay, maybe frustrated if you lose, but also to open up the mind of the players to very difficult and hard topics.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always for serious games, and I think it also caters for the, let's put it in a way that, I mean, when I made Watergate, it's a serious games. I said, will be a nice game. I can run it for a year and I'm happy. But that's one of the spaghettis that stick to the wall. And it's running now for several years. And what we did is, due to the fact that we not just made the game, but we also added a history booklet and made sure that people know a little bit about it and said, oh yeah, there was some connection there, that the people realized, yeah, we can also do it that way. And the press is really happy about that, because they can say, yeah, it's not just children, it's not just family under the Christmas tree, it's also some serious topic. And this again grows the market, because now there are maybe some adults who say, awesome, I can also play a game and learn something in that case. Helps again grow everything for everybody, and we see it in the last years. It's just growing because we find all the other niches, and that all helps.
Yeah. We just had a panel about press in the industry and the changes, and one of the most talked game this year at Spiel, like I mean at the newspapers and stuff, is Weimar, a game about our democracy. You know, like there's a lot of huge articles about how democracy feels, and it's a great game because you feel like how parties can take power and stuff like that. So that was like, I think, a surprise hit, because that feels like a serious game. It's a game about the democracy and about politics, and I would have never thought that this would be like a big topic outside, right?
We did This War of Mine, the board game, which was like a very serious game, because it was talking about the board. And we kind of took it a step further, because the part of the experience was that, you know, like usually when you play a game, you expect, you know, the rules and everything is set up, but we wanted to give you like a more immersion in that, you know. In war, you know, you can be just in the wrong place, wrong time, and you can die. So, and then we put that in the game, and some people loved it, some people hated it, and but I don't think that those type of games will be the most popular games. I still think that the most popular games will still be, you know, Catan, Seven Wonder, because it's like with, you know, Avengers and everything. But there's definitely a place for like serious topics in the board game, and there are a lot of people that will enjoy it, and we should definitely pursue it. And I think that the way to do it is just to, and even for myself, when we were working on This War of Mine, it was like such an educational journey, because preparing for that, we were like literally reading a lot of biographies, people who survived Sarajevo and things like that and so forth. So I think it is very important for us also to make it, because, you know, we as people can very often take things for granted and forget about important things. So This War of Mine was, but for example, democracy is also an amazing example of a thing that we can take for granted and forget how valuable it is and how easy. And doing games like that, This War of Mine is the game that I'm probably most proud of from the games I made, because it feels so good to make something that has this kind of heavy meaning, but it was a very heavy game. And, you know, and you're right, it's not a game that you play next to a beer and have fun or whatever. There's a place for both. That's it.
Taking a look into the future, what is the challenges you're facing at the moment and in the next upcoming years? I mean, you mentioned the war, the ongoing war, the brutal war from Russia. We mentioned the recession at the moment. I mean, that's the obvious quest we have to solve, right? So, but what are the next challenges you're thinking of? Where does the industry change to? How does the audience change? Let's predict the future, guys.
Yeah, please.
It's difficult to say, but I think that as a global trend, what we discuss about eco-friendly and paying more attention to this kind of topic will be something that we all collectively will have to take into consideration. Then after, again, talking about the book business, I think it's very difficult to predict, because, and I think this is also why I like to work in this business, is that there's a lot of things that is not predictable. Mm-hmm. It's difficult. If it was if there was a secret recipe to make the next Catan, we would have plenty of Catan on the market. There's not. And so that's why it's this test and learn process. All the effort we are putting to on publishing new games is something that makes really this business exciting, but also unpredictable. Again, so I would say the eco-friendly is clearly something. Thinking about how we will address and understand what are this new audience, which is growing today, thanks to the COVID, but not only, because it was growing before the COVID, and to understand what they are expecting and how we can surf the wave and see what they are demanding. Taking one example, 10 or 15 years ago, I was told that making a two-player games was never on my dead body, I won't publish a two-player games. Today we are developing a two-player range dedicated for two players only games. And
we even have one-player games now.
Yeah, even one. The social part of a one-player game is something to discuss. But
the social part is next to the game.
This is the kind of thing that it's difficult to predict. It's more to accompany than to predict. And as a publisher, we need to have eyes and ears open, and to understand and to maybe guess a little bit what will be the next things and what will be the expectation from the player and from the community.
Is it easier for smaller studios to react to changes than like a big ship like Asmodee?
I wouldn't say easier. I would say many new publishers are born due to the fact that say, in that niche, nobody is taking care of me, so I just started myself. And saying, okay, I make just games for one player is something that, for example, Impatience from France, are they from Belgium, France? I'm not sure, somewhere in that area. They just were born due to the fact that I have these great ideas, I want them to do, I do them myself, and it helps growing, again, that niche, and then others are picking that up. And of course, it's easier for some publishers to say, I want to make sure that everybody thinks this is the right game for them. And they write in, it's for 1 to 6 players. But there are these, that's for the mass market, that's okay. But in the niche, it says, yeah, but it's played best with that number. There's even a BGG entry, you can see what's the best number for that game. And they want their games for their player numbers. But to get to your question, what we see in the future, what I think, what I want to see in the future, let's put the question in that direction. I want to see more data, because that's, I think, one of the biggest issues we have is we all have some gut feeling. We all have an idea what we think will come, but we have no data to prove it, to underline it, to see it. And one of the biggest issues is we have finding a way to get more data, more information in our hands to make better decisions, to say, we know we don't want to do 100 games, we maybe want to just do 10, but we can prove with these numbers that these 10s might have a higher chance. And that's something I wish for. I don't see it in the next 5 years, I don't see it in the next 10 years, but on the long run, that's the thing I wish we will get.
Where does this data come from?
Game fun.
Game fun.
Maybe game fun.
Yeah, you don't have that problem. You have a lot of data.
Oh yeah, I mean that's also one of the huge benefit of the crowdfunding is like you don't have bad stock because you know what is the demand for the game, and you can like I have an idea. Let's ask about people. You do an update and you see right away whether they like it, they don't like it. It has positives and negatives because internet can be brutal, as you can learn when you run a campaign. But in general, I would say that the data there is useful and especially in the creative process, because one thing that I always tell to my team is like Disney couldn't make a good Star Wars follow-up. The biggest company on the planet Earth, entertainment sector, with the most talented people, don't know what people will like. So that gets you thinking, right? So who are you to know what will people like? And what does it mean? Does it mean that we as creators have to do our best and then keep our fingers crossed? That's the idea. So the way I kind of look at it, and this is the process, that's why we still use crowdfunding, because we could not use crowdfunding. But the reason we do it, because it gives us more iterations, more interactions with the players that will actually play the game, and we go back and forth, and the actual designs end up much closer to what people actually want. And you can never guess that, because games are like very unpredictable market, and this is funny. But as for the broader question is like what is the future kind of holding for board games? I think that there's like I think that in general there will be this kind of trend on the trend will get like there will be a lot of games published, but only few of them will be coming in evergreens. So I think that it will be even more radical than it is now. That people probably would like to 10th expansion to Catan that they know, rather than when they play with their family and friends or whatever. And then there will be like a niche group trying out new things, like early adopters, and then one title a year will get to this, holy evergreen status, and it will kind of be probably even more radical, because what we see in all entertainment sectors, because I think that we can look at movies, at games as the predictors, is, the intellectual property, very much known, can do a lot of good things for you in terms of the general kind of awareness of people.
Yeah. I know you look at the games industry because this war of mine was a video game and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But do you guys take a deep look at the video games industry? Because sometimes I feel, I said I'm a freelance journalist. I do a lot of work for the journalistic side of the video games, and I play a lot of video games. So I always feel like if you take a look at that industry, there's always like a little bit of like, you can pull some information out of it, like how the industry develops is sometimes similar or has parallels. Do you take a good look at that industry, and is that something that is important to you?
Yes, we have a look. There's clear synergies. There's video games made out of board game and board games.
Especially since Embracer, there's even more ties now.
Yeah, there's much more choice, yes. But I think it's as any cultural product, we are looking at each other. I think we are looking at also back to the books, but there's a lot of board games based on the books license. And we try at Aspode, for example, to develop books around the IP and the universe of some of our games. So yes, I think the interaction is obvious. We are looking at each other, but I don't think there's a specific attention. It's just like it's like normal to do it like this.
We do see a lot more video game companies coming to us and starting thinking about publishing board games around their IPs.
Yes,
we have seen that more and more coming. We did already in the past, but now with Embracer Group being part of the industry, we believe it's coming more. But even though like smaller video game studios realize that their IP has a value in a physical board game, and miniatures are still hot, and most of them are based on video game IPs.
Yeah. And you can bring a lot of new people to the hobby. I mean, we've seen it on the crowdfunding sites that people start as a collector, or you can see it with something like Locarno at the moment, that people that only collect or like a certain license, Disney or maybe Star Wars or something, are coming into the hobby. So there's a big chance, right? Are you sometimes looking at video games and thinking, oh, let's make a board game to a video game?
As the last time I played a video game was 20 years ago.
Okay.
So I'm not the one who knows what is going on, but that's a cool thing. I can ask some colleagues, some friends, and they say, oh, that's the hottest shit. I said, okay, tell me what's it all about. But my experience from the last 20 years is there's always this hope that we have this awesome license and all the video gamers want that. The truth is there are video gamers who say, oh, let's look at that board game, but that's a small part. But in the last 20 years, that part got bigger. Because, in the first time, board gamers looked and said, I don't care about the video game, I want to see that's a good game. And if you're doing a good game, that helps. And due to the fact that there are more and more that see, there are also good board games, not just, a Monopoly clone with IP on it, but really a game that gives me the same feeling. Like this War of Mine is an awesome example. We had Frostpunk last year, which also catches all these things. if you're doing it right, you can mangle these groups and get more and more of these people saying, yeah, I'm happy to look at the board game version and play it. And even board gamers say, let's look at the video game and see if I can play it solo, because my friends have no time for me. You know, so it helps, but it's a slow process, and a process that gets better and better the longer we look at it. And I can also see that these combinations are not just for video games, but also for some book IPs and maybe even some combination with music. Who knows?
There's actually one thing that is important to note is that thanks to board game manufacturers, when you think about the IP and you get a board game for $100, the value inside is insane when you look at, go to Essen and look like this miniature will cost you 20 euros. And then you get a board game for $100 and there's like 50 miniatures inside, cards, amazing art. The value actually, if you extrapolate the game, like even if there wouldn't be a game, you have so much awesome art, so much everything that I think that this is cool. But there's one important thing that we see and that have data for it, is that there are type of games that goes well, the transition from digital games, because what we've seen this year, Call of Duty, one of the biggest license ever. They did a board game, but you have RPG games. RPGs are very good topic. Strategy games. So it kind of makes sense, right? If you have strategic video game player, much more possible that he will transition well into the board game, right? If you have a shooter type of player, the chances that he'll actually play a board game, maybe we finally have a real-time board game player base, because that's one of the hardest board games to publish if you have like real-time mechanics. Well, maybe.
But one thing that will never change, I guess, Carol, is that board games will stay offline. We've seen a couple of years ago that a lot of companies tried out to involve electronics and smartphones and make board games more digital. That was something that didn't work at all. We don't see that at this year's Spiel.
I would say there are some good examples out there that included technical components or apps that have really good storytelling and game flow elements in it. So yes, there are good examples of that, but they will never be the main focus of our hobby. Okay. But what I think is that we will see more and more games in the future that include new mechanics, new techniques, like NFC chips, for example. There's even a game here using that, a children's game with music. So yes, we will see that, how it will influence our hobby, but I still think that having that social component that we all play around a table, in a room, having fun together, see how the other people react to it, that is so impactful, that will never change.
Like even if we sit here in another 40 years, at
80
years Spiel.
Of course. See you again in 40 years.
Yeah, I will manage, I think. Do you see a lot of raise in the production from like new ideas, new components like electronics and stuff like that? It's not a big demand.
It's not a big demand. We see it from time to time. I agree. There are a few examples which work out. There was the Tebru. It's still out there, but it takes time. And I feel that the acceptance is not as high as it was expected, because people want to have the experience of a physical game happening. So we don't see that much coming now.
Okay, guys, I think we're finished. Thank you very much. It was a very interesting talk. Like I said, let's meet again in 10 years, 50 years of Spiel, then your 10 years anniversary. I think we can agree to that. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being my guests. And thank you for watching and being here. Thank you.